Morning, everybody. Good to see you all here. Still got a couple of people, sorry, that's not a good start. Got a couple of people still coming in through the waiting room, but looks like most people are here. Hopefully we're going to have an interesting day. We're going to really try and start tying down some of the recommendations or the kind of proto-recommendations. They are our thoughts that we want to take back when we do go back into meeting as a whole assembly next weekend. And hopefully you enjoyed yesterday afternoon, the chance to check in with some of the people that have been working on different streams. And it's sometimes hard to remember when we're just working here, focusing in on the sort of diet and lifestyle stream, that the same amount of work is going on right across the assembly with people looking at work, looking at how we need to change, how we travel, looking at how we need to change around our homes and the way our homes are built and heated, and how we need to do changes around even how our communities work that will enable us to meet some of these really challenging goals as Chris was highlighting to us yesterday afternoon. So good to see everyone. Just that reminder that, again, when we're in the main room, we tend to stay on mute most of the time. It just means that any background noise doesn't cut through and into the discussions. But when we're in the small groups, obviously, we encourage you to talk as much as you can and get involved in the conversation, because it's really important that we're hearing everyone's voices here. I know some people have actually given a lot of thought and gone away and done some research and, really have some very strong ideas and well-informed ideas, and that's fantastic. But we also need to hear how other people are responding to that. Don't just leave it to the people who you think maybe know the most about something. You're all important in these decisions, because actually it's about what the people of Scotland think about some of these ideas. Okay, so that quick reminder, on Zoom, you can adjust the view by using the buttons in the top corner, whether you want top right corner, whether you want gallery view, whether you want standard view. Particularly when we're looking at presentations, it's sometimes easier to go into standard view, you'll get a better view of it. And remember, the support team are there in the background as well and able to help if you've got any issues in terms of being able to join the conversation effectively. What I'm going to do just before we get started with the main business is run through a bit of an agenda for the day. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so this is where we are today. Weekend 5. So what we're going to have is this morning, probably our final real evidence presentation. And it's going to be an update on the Scottish Climate Change Plan. So that will give us a bit of context to be thinking again, what does this mean for the recommendations we've been considering and the recommendations we're continuing to develop? We'll then have an opportunity to actually have another question and answer session. We've got a smaller group here now because it's only our stream, so hopefully we'll get through quite a few of the questions there. And then a bit of chance to get back into your groups and really think about, well, what does this mean? What does the information we've heard now mean for the types of recommendations that we're developing and prioritising? We'll then have a little comfort break around mid-morning, and then we'll be doing similar than we did yesterday. You'll have the opportunity with the speakers coming around into your breakout rooms that you can use them as a resource to help you make sure, actually, I have got my head around whether this would be a good recommendation or not, or what do we need to do to actually make sure that the things we're considering proposing actually will have the type of impact that we want them to have. And then when we come back in the afternoon, you will remember that last weekend we looked at the propositions around fairness that had been developed up by the different groups. And we asked you to, I suppose, start ranking them, start identifying which ones seemed most important to make sure they stay in our consideration. We've spent a lot of time this week focusing on some effectiveness. It's time to start bringing fairness back in as well. So we'll have the results of the vote of the ranking that you all did, and we'll ask you to sort of consider that when you start looking back over reviewing all of the goals and recommendations that you've been working on over the weekend. We're also going to do, because there was a couple of requests yesterday about what really does a good goal or recommendation look like. So we're going to do a little bit about just sort of thinking about how we use words and how we can really focus in on them. You'll have a little bit more time in the afternoon to actually just sort of check in that actually all the work we've done this weekend, are we happy that we've covered everything? And there is also the opportunity, as we've talked about before, that if there are things missing, so either new goals or really substantive changes to recommendations, we can share that with each other and any sort of new propositions that groups have come forward with. And in that part of the afternoon, there'll also be an opportunity, because I know you've been mainly working in the same small groups, have an opportunity to actually feed back to each other some of the types of priorities that you think are important. So before we get started, just a reminder again of we have got more of the conversation guidelines that we looked at yesterday, but particularly when you're in your groups, one person speaking at a time, but give everyone time to talk. Give everyone that chance to participate in the conversation. Really try and listen to each other and hopefully even be open to changing your mind. So I think that's really all I have to say to get us started. So I'm going to hand over to Pete Smith, who's here with us, who's one of our evidence group. You'll remember him from previous weekends, and he's going to be with us this morning kind of as our evidence lead. So I'll hand over to Pete.
Okay, thanks, Kayla. So today, the first thing you're going to be seeing is the last evidence presentation, and it's going to be an update of the Scottish Climate Change Plan. Back in 2018, the Scottish Government published its Climate Change Plan, and just now it's published the Climate Change Plan update. So it's an update to that original plan. But it's important to note that this plan sets out a range of policies and emission reductions, but these policies haven't yet been calculated for how much sort of emission reduction is possible. And so we don't know yet whether they're sufficient to meet the 2030 or the 2045 targets. So that's important to note. There's plans for cutting emissions. It's been published since we started the beginning of the process, so we thought that it would be useful to see it because it's something that's happened whilst we've been deliberating, and it will help the Assembly focus on the recommendations that are in areas that we feel that the plan doesn't address sufficiently. So we're going to hear a presentation from Fabrice Levesque from the Climate Emergency Response Group on this climate change update plan. So just for information, the Climate Emergency Response Group is a collection of like-minded leaders spanning Scotland's private, public and third sectors, delivery organisation and membership bodies. The group aims to inform and influence the Scottish Government's response to the climate emergency by providing practical, workable solutions that can be implemented, not in the future, but now. That's the important thing. So, Kayla, when you're ready, please play the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so people coming back from the breakout rooms. And yeah, still a couple of the breakout rooms returning. And that looks like everyone's back with us now. So great. Hopefully that was a sort of bit of a chance to reflect on what you'd heard and what you'd heard from both Fabrice in the presentation and then from Dave. We're now going to move on to what really is the sort of substantive piece of work for this morning, which is again a repeat of what we were, a repeat in structure of what we did yesterday. So we're returning this time to the question 1 and question 2. So in our stream, that was very much about what should we be doing about diet and what should we be doing about land use. So rebalancing these things to tackle the climate emergency in an effective and fair way. So we're going to give you a little bit of time in your groups now to just remind yourself of where you were in terms of thinking about the goals and the recommendations. You did some work on that at the end of last weekend, but a chance to sort of come back and remind yourself of that before we start doing again the carousel. So you're going to have 4 speakers who are going to be coming around into your rooms again to help you focus in on where your recommendations can make the most difference. And again, they'll spend 10 minutes in each group. So to help you sort of be thinking ahead, I'm going to ask Pete now just to tell us a little bit about the people who will be joining the groups later.
Thanks, Kayla. I'll just pop a slide up. There you go. Hopefully you can see that. So on the carousel today, we've got 5 experts for you. We'll be rotating around each group for 10 minutes, 10 minutes each. We've got Dave Ray, who you've already met this morning, who spoke on weekend 1, and he's Professor of Carbon Management and Education at the University of Edinburgh, and also Director of the Edinburgh Climate Change Institute. There's myself, you've seen me before this morning and also on a couple of previous weekends. I'm in the School of Biological Sciences at the University of Aberdeen, and I'll be there for you if you need me. We have Dr. Jane Glass and Annie Mackey. Jane is a land use policy research fellow in the Rural Policy Centre at Scotland's Rural College, SRUC as it's known. And Annie is a researcher in land management at the James Hutton Institute. And we also have Dr. Callum MacLeod, who's the Policy Director for Community Land Scotland, which is an organisation that represents community landowners. So we'll be there for you when you need us in a few moments. You're going to meet up first together, but we'll be there for you after that when you start debating the questions. So
just to flag these people will be joining you in about 20 minutes time. But before that, you've got 20 minutes really to, I suppose, sort of get your head back into thinking where were the priorities around diet and land use that you were identifying last time. Potentially look back, last time you started identifying what did you need to know more information about, so that when the people come into the rooms and speakers come into the rooms, you'll have the best, you'll be able to use the best, you'll be able to focus where you really want to be asking them questions. So we're going to go back into breakout rooms, and after 20 minutes, we will start sending people in. Oh no, then you get a break. Sorry, I forgot to say, we do give you a break. So you've got 20 minutes to get your first task done. Then you do get a break, go and grab yourself a coffee or whatever, and then you'll be able to engage with these experts as they come to visit you. All right, see you a bit later.